So, now you know you really can buy and own deeded coastline property here in Mexico. So, let's talk about the next complete fallacy that I hear all the time about Mexico, and that's that the government's going to come in the middle of the night and yank you out of your bed and officially seize your brand new home right out from under your nose. Because we've all heard the stories by now about places like, well, Punta Banda and a half a dozen others, where if you listen to the news media, dozens of people, and I got to read this to you, dozens of people were taken out of their beds by Uzi-toting, jackbooted thugs who surrounded the community with tanks, busted into people's homes with no notice, and pulled these people, these poor elderly people, from their beds in the middle of the night. Boy, I got to tell you something. You give these people, these news media people, a big box of crayons, and they're sure going to paint as outlandish a story of a very simple story as they possibly can, all for the nightly news. Bottom line is it just didn't happen. But before I get into Punta Banda and the other stories like it in the next video, I want to clear something up, and that's just why, provided, if you purchased your home from a reputable dealer like here at Rancho Costa Verde or Sotheby's or CBRE or any of the other big developers down here that have been here for more than a decade or so, and you have a bona fide deeded and registered property, this type of thing can't happen anymore. And it can't happen because the government, they won't allow it. They don't want that to happen. You see, as we talked about in the last video, the government's GDP consisted back before 94 anyway of principally oil and gas and, of course, a few other components. But since 94, they added the income from their almost 6,000 miles of beautiful, pristine shoreline down here, and it took a constitutional amendment to make it happen. And today, not only do the sales of those properties account for billions in government revenue annually, the resulting boost in the service sector, now that's the jobs and such that are created as a direct result of that property being opened up, well, it's pushed the service sector to almost 60% of the nation's GDP. Now, you add in the additional development dollars, the property taxes, the construction, the jobs that are generated from that, and the attendant materials and the sales, and, well, that adds more billions to the coffer. Do that and you start to see just why amending Article 27 was so darn important. And then there's the attendant boost in the standard of living that President Salinas back in 94, and every president since him has always been looking to do. The additional income from the tourism that adds more money to the pot, and the list goes on, and pretty soon you start seeing a pattern emerge. The nation's getting stronger. The people are doing a lot better than they were before. And in fact, while in 2021 agriculture was contributing a small share to the GDP, still about 4%, and 31% was coming from industry, maybe 32%, almost 60% was coming from the service sector. And all told, when you figure in banking and finance of the service sector, including commercial activities and tourism, entertainment dollars, and all the stuff that comes in as a direct result, you're talking about over 2/3 of Mexico's GDP. Now, we can argue all day long about exactly how much of that, almost 60%, is directly attributable to the housing and entertainment within the restricted zone. But the salient question is always going to be, what's going to happen if the government starts seizing properties of the foreigners who are so hugely responsible for the rise in government money and the rise in the government's standard of living? Never mind, it's a rhetorical question, I apologize. Because you know what's going to happen. So the next time you hear someone continuing to spread these ridiculous rumors about the government coming in and seizing people's property in the middle of the night down here, please, you gotta be a very intelligent person if you're successful enough in life to be considering a property down here in Mexico. So why don't you just chalk it up to what's always been? More sensationalism that's being promoted either to sell commercial time or advertising space, or by these keyboard warriors who have nothing better to do than instill fear in those of us who are successful enough to actually be able to afford a place down here in paradise. Now, because I still hear about it all the time, despite the fact that it happened more than 30 years ago, the next video is going to be on Punta Banda and exactly what did and what didn't happen down there. I'll see you then.